So, hello friends, my name is Arvind. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So basically, I'm a UPSC aspirant. I'm preparing for UPSC Civil Services for about 2 years now. My intention behind starting this channel is to let my fellow aspirants and the upcoming students to make use of my kind of analysis and explanation, which I'm going to upload in this channel. So, my areas of interest are economics, public policy, and current affairs. So, I just want you all to know something brief about my career background. So, coming to my career background, I have my bachelor's in commerce from Andhra University, and then I have done my CA intermediate course. Post which I have done few specializations in investment banking from NISF, National Institute of Securities Markets, which comes under the Securities and Exchange Board of India. After doing this, I worked with Wipro BBS Hyderabad for about 1 year as an investment banking analyst. But my kind of interest into civil services made me resign to that job, and I have shifted my path towards civils preparation. So in this journey, I have also experimented journalism. My kind of analysis and interest towards editorials and opinions made me pursue journalism too. So I was selected as an in-house reporter by Inadu Journalism School and the New Indian Express, Hyderabad. But due to some personal reasons, I couldn't join with them. And later, I was actively in association with an NGO called Center for Civil Society. It is based in Hyderabad and it has got many branches across the country. So with this NGO, I have done a certification course on politics on development under the guidance of Mr. Jaiprakash Narayan. And as of now, at this moment, I am pursuing MA Political Science uh, from Andhra University, besides my preparation to into civil services and central government examinations. So this is something brief about myself. So today I'm going to explain something about the news which has been in the news for about a good time now. Something like EMI moratorium. So this is in news for about good time now, and there's a lot of debate happening in the news channels and also in the newspaper, like whether it is good or bad as a relaxation policy to the normal man, to the ordinary person who is deprived of resources during the pandemic time and all. I just wanted to make this video to burst the myth and to make it simple for a layman to understand what exactly is this EMI moratorium. I'll make an attempt to make it simple with some illustrious examples and all. So let us go into the topic. So breaking the terms, EMI and moratorium. EMI stands for equated monthly installment. The name itself tells us. What is an EMI? EMI is a facility which is given to a customer in a bank who has borrowed some amount, wherein the customer who has borrowed can repay his loan amount in defined tenure in an equated amount every month. So this equated monthly installment will comprise of both interest and principal, and this EMI is calculated using a formula which bankers use, and I'm also going to reveal that formula today, which you don't get usually anywhere else. So this is all about EMI. And something about moratorium. Say moratorium, when you find the dictionary meaning of moratorium, it is something like temporary standstill, means a temporary halt on the transactions of a bank. That is what the dictionary meaning you find. And in the news, most often we see like the Reserve Bank of India has initiated moratorium on the bank on EMIs, etc. But technically speaking, the Reserve Bank of India has got no direct power to impose moratorium. There is something called Banking Regulation Act. So according to section 45 of the Banking Regulation Act, if the Reserve Bank of India deems fit that it is really necessary to impose moratorium on the transactions of a bank, then it can request the central government with this purpose, and the central government, after due diligence and some kind of analysis, if it really thinks that there is a dire need of moratorium, they'll impose moratorium. And that is how we see moratorium coming into place. So in the recent past, there are two instances where we see the concept of moratorium coming into news. One with Yes Bank and the other with EMI moratorium. So Yes Bank is basically a private sector bank which is deprived of capital. It has the management of the Yes Bank literally failed to raise capital to meet its losses in terms of NPS and all. So there is no other alternative except imposing moratorium, and the Reserve Bank of India, with the permission of central government, was able to impose moratorium and cancel its management, and further State Bank of India acquired stake in this Yes Bank, and it has got some management shift, etc. So that is with the Yes Bank. And now this EMI moratorium. The EMI moratorium is something like a concept where you give relaxation to all kinds of loans and all kinds of borrowers to temporarily postpone the kind of EMI payment for about 3 months. Initially it was announced for 3 months, from March, April and May, and then it was extended for about next 3 months, June, July and August. So this is the concept, this is the news about EMI moratorium. Now we will understand what is this EMI and kind of what exactly is happening in bank. A quick recap about a transaction that happens with a bank. See, the bank, literally the word bank is derived from a Latin word called bancus, where the usual function of a bank is bancus, which means bench. This is the literary derivation of the word bank. It is from Latin. It is called bancus, and that means a bench. So bench is nothing but, earlier during the earliest civilization of Mesopotamia, etc., the banking transactions used to happen at a bench. It's a simple bench which used to be in the form of a trapezium, and transactions used to happen that way. So what exactly is a banking business? So a bank usually accepts deposits and lends money. A bank usually accepts deposits and lends money. So it accepts deposits from customers, that is us. All of us deposit our cash with bank. So, and the bank has to pay some sort of interest on these deposits. It is the cost of capital, or it is the cost of fund for the bank. So bank usually pays some interest on these deposits which it has accepted. So let us assume it pays around 4% interest on these deposits. Now the bank will not keep these funds idle. What it does is, every rupee deposited in the bank, most of the amount, except for the reserves that are supposed to be deposited with the central bank, most of these deposits will be lent out, will be given as loan to those who are in need. And that is how we usually see the circulation of money in the economy. Okay, banks accepts deposits and they lend it to somebody who is in need of them. Okay, so when they lent money, they usually charge at a higher interest rate, a rate which is higher than what they actually pay on the deposits. For example, if they are charging some 4% on deposits, they will charge some 8% or more on the lent on the money which they have given as loan. So the difference between the two is called net interest, which is the source of income for the bank. Besides many other kind of income with the latest banking mechanisms and all, this is the usual source of income to the bank, the net interest margin. So what is this interest? Let us now figure out the term interest. Why is this so? What is this interest? So to understand the concept of interest, we have to understand the concept of some time value of money. Something like time value of money. I'll give a small example to this. Say you have 100 rupees with you. Today, you go to market and you purchase some 10 mangoes. So each mango you have bought it 10 rupees each. Say for example, 3 months from now, You have the same 100 rupees and you wanted to buy 10 mangoes in the market, but you observe that the price of the mango increased from 10 rupees to 12.5. Now if you do the calculation, how many mangoes will you be able to purchase? It is 8 mangoes. So this is a small illustration. The reason could be anything. It could be the increase in demand for mangoes which has inflated the price, or it could be some increase in the transportation costs which impacted the increase in the price of the mango. The reason could be anything. We'll discuss the concept of inflation in some other video. But for this video, understand that 100 rupees 3 months before is not 100 rupees today. It is because of increase in the price of a commodity which reduced the purchasing power of the money which you had. Say for example, you see the increase in price as 25%. For example, earlier you had 10 rupees, you were able to purchase one mango at 10 rupees. Now you have one mango being purchased at 12.5. Had you given only 10 rupees, you would have got how much of the mango? Only 80%, 0.8 mango you would have got. Understand? It's like you had 10 rupees earlier when you were able to purchase one mango at full, and now it is 12.5, but you still carried only 10 rupees. The price is 12.5, but you have only 10 rupees in your pocket, and you will, for the purpose of example, I'm just doing this calculation. We can't purchase 80% of a mango or something like that. It will be a joke, but still, if you still have 10 rupees in your pocket, at the price prevailing in the market, that is 12.5, you will be able to purchase only 80% of it. So the purchasing power of your money decreased by 20%, which means difference between 1 and 0.8 is 0.2, which means the purchasing power of your money decreased by 20% with 25% increase in the price of a product. So this is what you understand as time value of money. Okay, so let us now take a prudent consumer, a person who is very judicious. He knew that today with 100 rupees he can get 10 mangoes. And he pretty much knew well that in future he is supposed to have 125 to get 10 mangoes at 12.5, not 10. Today the price is 10 rupees per mango, and you have 100 rupees, you are able to purchase 10 mangoes. But in future you know that it is going to be 12.5 and you need to have 125 to purchase 10. So what are you going to do? You are supposed to park your source of income in some instrument, in some savings instrument, which can help you earn something to meet the inflation. I'll repeat this sentence. You often find these kind of sentences in business newspapers. Why do you have to save money? You have to save money because you'll have to increase your fund. You'll have to accumulate your fund so that you'll be in a position to meet the inflation targets. You knew that inflation is going to happen. So you'll bring the concept of savings. If you just put your funds in your coffer, it will produce nothing. Instead of putting those funds in your coffer, if you can just put them in the bank, it will earn something on it in the form of interest. So this is how you'll have the concept of interest. That means increase in the value of money by time. This is called time value of money. Now people can understand why banks charge interest and why banks provide us interest. The mechanism of the economy and the circulation of money is inherent with the concept of interest. Money today, rupee today is not the rupee tomorrow. That is the concept. And it is hence, because of this time value of money, we'll have the concept of interest in the banks. So this is all about interest in the banks. Now, I'm coming to the concept of EMI moratorium. What exactly is this EMI moratorium? Say, you have borrowed some 5 lakh rupees. You have borrowed some 5 lakh rupees at 12%. for 2 years. The formula which bankers use to calculate the EMI is like this. EMI is equal to the principal which you have borrowed multiplied by the rate of interest compounded by the rate of interest for the number of years you have borrowed divided by the discounting factor reduced by 1. So this is something complex. This is not this is not so easy to understand as a formula, but when I put it, when I substitute these numbers, I think you'll be able to understand it well. So for now, understand that this is the formula which bankers use to arrive at the EMI. Most of the people whom I knew, they were of a misconception that the interest that we find with banks is simple interest. That is PTR by 100. No, it is not. Banks do not run with the simple interest formula. They always run after the compound interest formula. Compound interest. Compound interest means, say for example, I'll use this earlier example which I have used, which I've explained to explain the same concept of compound interest. Say for example, you knew that you have 10 rupees today and it is going to be 12.5 tomorrow. What is the rate of interest? Understand? So you knew that 10 rupees is going to increase at 25% to become 12.5. So this is nothing but compounding. Compounding is nothing but multiplying your amount with interest, the rate of interest. So this is how 10 multiplied by 1 plus 25% is nothing but 10 into 1 plus 10 into 25%. That means 10 plus 2.5, which is 12.5. So this is simply the formula which you see with compound interest, like principal is equal to, amount is equal to principal into 1 plus I whole power n. So I'll be making some other video on simple interest and compound interest basics to let you people understand what exactly is this. But for now, understand that 10 rupees today is 12.5 tomorrow, which means the rate of increase is 25%, and that increase of 25% over the 10% is nothing but compounding. Okay? Usually it happens for a number of years, and that is hence you call it as a compound interest. Amount is equal to principal into 1 plus I whole power n. That is nothing but exponential function. When you use it as an exponential function, you actually are increasing it at a exponential rate. So coming back to the concept, this is the formula which bankers use to arrive at the EMI amount. So for to make my calculations easy, I'm using a calculator. So for this purpose, we are calculating a monthly EMI, monthly equated monthly installment, but we have 12% per annum. The rate of interest, the rate of interest is 12% per annum. So we have, as such, we are calculating EMI. We are supposed to convert the annual interest into monthly interest, which means 12% by 12 months, which means 1%. Okay. So while using this formula, in this rate of interest, I will be substituting 1% to make it simple. Okay. So substituting the figures, EMI will be 5 lakhs principal. Say you have borrowed 5 lakhs at 12% per annum for 2 years. That is the example. Okay. So 5 lakhs into 1% into 1 plus 1% whole power 2 years is nothing but, here when I'm using this n as an exponential function, I'm supposed to substitute the number of years for which I'm borrowing. That is the concept. When I'm using whole power n, I'm supposed to substitute the number of years for which I'm borrowing. But when I'm calculating monthly installment, the n value here should be number of months which I'm going to borrow. Okay, I'm repeating the sentence. The actual formula is like rate of interest per annum and n will be the number of years. But as such, I'm calculating the equated monthly installment. The logic is I have to convert this rate of interest into per month rate of interest, that is 12% by 12 months is equal to 1%. And in the value of n, I'm supposed to substitute the number of months which I'm going to borrow. 2 years is how many months? 24 months. So in the place of n, I'm going to substitute 24 divided by 1 plus 1% whole power 24 minus 1. So if you do all this calculation, you'll get something around 23,869 something. So this actually is the EMI which you are going to pay every month if at all you borrow 5 lakhs at 12% per annum for 2 years. Next time when you borrow or you wanted to borrow, see if you are using this formula to arrive at this EMI, so that you're gonna check. Or if students are interested, you can go and ask your parents and check if the loan is, if you can have all the details, the amount borrowed and the rate of interest and the tenure. Use this formula to arrive at this EMI. It will exactly match. So this is the formula. So the logic with the concept which I'm going to teach you right now is something so very critical in a way that nobody will let you know this, not even the banker. But this is very much important and crucial. Pay attention. So there is something called loan amortization table. Loan amortization table. It goes like this: number of months, principal that you have borrowed, principal outstanding, interest on this principal, EMI that you have paid. See, I've told you in the earlier, just before, at the beginning of this video, that EMI comprises of both principal and interest. But the magic goes on right now. It's like the way you are supposed to understand it is different. See, let us check EMI, and then so principal portion of this EMI. See, 0 month, you have borrowed 5 lakhs. You'll not pay anything. First month, same. Interest on 5 lakh at 1%. Earlier I told you that 12% is for per annum. But when we convert it into monthly rate of interest, it is going to be 12% by 12 months, that is 1%. So 5 lakhs into 1% is 5,000. 5,000. EMI is arrived at 23,869. Now what is the principal portion of EMI that you are paying? The principal portion of EMI will be EMI reduced by the interest on the principal outstanding. The principal portion will be, the principal portion that you're paying in the EMI will be, EMI is 23,869. I told you that it comprises of both principal and interest. So the principal portion of EMI is arrived by subtracting from EMI the interest portion that you have paid on the principal outstanding. You can pause this video and you can replay it any number of times to understand the logic. If not, I'll try to make it much simpler in another video, but at this moment I'm trying to make it this way. So if you subtract the interest portion from this, it will be 18,869. So this is the principal portion that you have paid in the EMI. So EMI comprises of both principal and interest which you have paid back. So the principal portion is 18,869 and the interest is 5,000. Adding together it becomes 23,869. So earlier we've used a formula to calculate the EMI amount, which is 23,869, and this table is to show you the breakup of what comprises of EMI, to understand if EMI moratorium is really required, is really fruitful. That is what I meant. So second month, the principal outstanding will be, so you've already paid principal 18,869, so principal outstanding will be revised 5 lakhs minus 18,869, so 481 131 is the principal outstanding, and the interest on this is at 1% rate of interest. It is going to be how much? 4811, something like this. The rate of interest remains the same. It is 12% per annum and 1% per month. So it is going to be 4811. So the EMI is same. The definition of EMI is such that it is going to be the same all through the tenure of the loan. So 23,869. So again, the principal portion in the EMI that which you have paid will be 19,058. Okay, so you should understand that EMI is calculated using a formula, and EMI comprises of EMI is something which you pay back for the loan which you have borrowed. So EMI comprises of principal portion as well as interest portion, but the logic is it is not going to be the same all through the tenure of the loan. The EMI portion doesn't comprise of the same principal and interest. That is the logic which I am going to convey. Initially you checked that the EMI amount is same, and when the principal you borrowed, it is 5 lakhs, the interest is at 1% per month, it is 5,000. 1% at 5 lakhs is 5,000. So EMI reduced by 5,000 is 18,869. So this 18,869 should be the principal which you have repaid which is included in the EMI amount. So if you reduce this principal paid from the principal outstanding, it will become 481,131. So EMI on that, interest on that will be 4811. So EMI will be the same, and the principal now will be 23,869 minus 4811, which is 19,058. Let us check another month, third month. So now principal paid is 19,058. It should be reduced from the principal outstanding of the previous year to arrive at the principal outstanding of the current month. That is what? Previous month and current month. 481131 minus 19,058. So it is 462,070. If you observe the trend, for the loan which you have borrowed, the principal outstanding is reducing as you pay the loan back. Okay. Again, EMI is 23,869. This is this figure might be false. I just don't remember this. This is just an example. Okay. Accurately, it could be different, but in and around it will be 23,869. So interest again on 1% at 1% on this is 4620. So then a principal portion paid in this EMI will be EMI reduced by interest 23,869 minus 4620, 19,249. So if you observe the trend, as you go on paying the EMIs, as you go down the line, you will be paying more of the principal and less of the interest. Did you observe that? That's the beauty of this formula. As you go through the time scale, as you go on paying the EMIs, in the same EMI amount which you find, you think, or an ordinary layman would think that he or she is paying the same amount of principal and interest all through the tenure, because the term is equated monthly installment. But the fact is, equated monthly installment doesn't mean equal amounts of principal and interest. It means a different thing. So when you apply the formula, when you draw this table, you will understand that during the initial period of paying the interest EMI back, you will see that more of the EMI goes towards interest. Okay, and less of the EMI goes towards the principal. And you see that as you go on paying the EMIs, you see more of the principal being cleared and less of the interest. So the logic here is, say for example, the logic with the formula which I have drawn is, during the initial years, your EMI comprises of more of interest and less of principal. But as you go down the line, you will see later the EMI have interest portion being reduced with principal component increasing. In the earlier example, we have seen that earlier interest is 5,000 and principal is something like 19,000 or something, 18,000. Okay. Comparatively, when you check independent figures, as you go down the line, interest usually in the earlier period you paid 5,000 and then 4,800 and then 4,620. So when you go on paying the EMIs, you see that the interest portion is decreasing, and when you go on paying the EMIs, you see the principal portion of it being increasing. So now let us understand this. Now I am coming to the crux of the topic. If EMI moratorium is really beneficial, and if it is beneficial to whom? Say, let us take Mr. X, who borrowed for his house in 2019 50 lakhs. Let us take example of Mr. Y, who borrowed for the same house in 2012, saying 50 lakhs. If you go with the logic that which I have just explained about the loan amortization, that during the initial months your EMI comprises more of the interest and less of the principal, and as you go down the line you will have more of the principal and less of the interest. So I'll try to put a screenshot of a loan amortization table in this video so that you can pause and understand if you are really interested in checking the metrics. So with going by that logic, that initially you'll have to pay more for the interest and less for the principal. Now this is the case. Mr. X borrowed in 2019 and Mr. Y borrowed in 2012. Say in 2020 we have this pandemic. Due to corona there is a lot of freezing of economic activity, and the liquidity crunch, people are short of money. So the idea of EMI moratorium is good. We shouldn't blame that. This video is not to blame the idea of EMI moratorium, but to let people understand who is beneficial, who becomes a beneficial of this, and who is not going to be beneficial. So in 2020 we have this EMI moratorium. Say for example, if Mr. X opts for EMI moratorium, what happens? Mr. X, 50 lakhs, 2019. If he opts for EMI moratorium, from March till August, he will not be paying his EMI. That doesn't mean his EMI will be waived. People should understand moratorium is a temporary standstill. It doesn't mean waiver. So if he opts for EMI moratorium and he stops paying his EMIs from March till August, the logic is he'll have his EMIs, for example, on a hypothetical situation, his EMI is, for an example, it is something like 36,000. 36,000 is his EMI. So he's not going to pay his EMI. For example, for 6 months he's not going to pay 36, 6 months. The thing is, it is clearly told that during the period of moratorium, the interest portion of this EMI, I told you earlier that EMI comprises of both principal and interest, and during the initial years of EMI payment, you will have more of interest and less of principal, and as you go down the line, you'll have less of interest and more of principal. I'll also be including a screenshot of the loan amortization table so that people can understand. For now, understand this logic. Okay, so he opted for EMI and 36,000 for 6 years, 6 months. So as such, he is a new borrower. He is in the initial stages of his payment. He is in the initial stages of his payment, in the sense 2019 is so early, so just initial stages. So for example, if his loan tenure is for 20 years, it is going to end at 2039. Okay, he is really in quite early stages. So during the early stages, his interest will be more. So the logic is, say for example, if the interest portion of his EMIs in the earlier in this stage is like say for example, say something like 12,000. Okay, next month the EMI portion will be 11,980 for for an example purpose. Then it is going to be something like 11,500, then 11,200, something like that. So all this EMI interest portion of EMI will be added back to his principal. The logic is EMI moratorium. He'll opt for EMI moratorium, and the interest portion he'll not be paying the EMIs. And the logic is the interest portion. I told you that EMI comprises both of interest and principal. So the interest portion of these EMIs will be added back to the principal outstanding. That is the logic. So with this, we understand that banks are not going to lose anything. If it is beneficial or not, this example is going to prove. If at all he is in the initial stages, his interest will be higher. As he goes on paying, his interest will reduce. His interest portion of EMI will reduce. So say for example 12, 11, 11, 11, 11. Say for example we for 11 5 55,000 plus 12,000 is something like 67,000. So 67,000 is the total interest component of all the EMIs for 6 months, which will be added to the principal outstanding. 67,000. So this makes it clear. He knew that he borrowed 50 lakhs, but because of opting moratorium, and just because he has opted moratorium, 67,000 of interest will be added to principal outstanding. Now what happens if principal outstanding is increased? An increase in principal outstanding is nothing but revision of EMI figure. This EMI of 36,000 is calculated on 50 lakhs. But now, just because he has opted for moratorium, these interest amounts will be added back to the principal outstanding, and that becomes 56 lakh 7,000, something like 50 lakh 67,000, and that will lead to revision of EMI figure. If 36,000 is on 50 lakhs, don't you think the EMI figure will increase with the increase in principal outstanding? Definitely. 36,000 is the EMI on 50 lakhs, and now he has opted for moratorium. Interest portion is added. The EMI is going to increase, and we don't know the amount less. For example, the EMI increases to 38,000. Example, we consider it is going to increase by 38,000. Above all, the tenure which was postponed will be added to the end period. You postponed 6 EMIs. These 6 months will be added to the tenure at the end. If suppose he borrowed in 2019 January, it should end by 2039 January. It will not end by 2039 August. 6 months. So that is the logic. So this is the case. Say in case, let us take example of Mr. Y, who borrowed in 2012. So he has already lapsed 8 years of payment. He 8 years, 8 into 12, 96 months. He has paid the EMI. So definitely we see after paying 96 months of EMI, his interest portion of the EMI has got reduced. Definitely yes, isn't it so? Comparatively speaking, let us draw a comparison. $50 lakhs X 2019. Mr. Y 50 lakhs 2012. So his EMI is 36. As such, he is in the initial stages. In 2020, when we calculate the interest portion, say it is 12,000. But Mr. Y 2012, so he has paid more than 100 months of EMI, something like that. So definitely his EMI is also 36,000, but the interest portion of it will be definitely less than this figure. Just try to understand. 2019, he is in the early stages of payment. His interest portion in the EMI will be 12,000. This will not be the case with Mr. Y, because he has already lapsed 100 installments. He has paid 100 installments. So definitely this will be less. Say it will be something like 6,000. This will be understood if you go through the loan amortization table, which I will try to put it as a screenshot. Okay, so 6,000. So consider Mr. Y postponing the payment. So 6,000 into say 6,000 5,800, 5,700, something like that. Say 5 into 5, 25 plus 6, 31,000. If he postpones EMI payment for 6 months, the interest portion of that EMI for 6 months, which is going to be added to the principal as per the Reserve Bank rule, will be 31,000 in case of Mr. Y, because the interest is 6,000, 5,800, like that. In this case, it is 12,000, 11,000, like that, because it's in the initial stages and the interest is high. So in his case, it is 67,000, which is going to be added in the principal. In his case, it is 31,000. So we can come to a conclusion that EMI moratorium is going to be a benefit for those who have considerably paid certain months of EMI. Those who borrowed afresh, going by the logic that the EMI will comprise more of interest during the initial stages of loan, is not going to benefit at all. The cost of interest being added to the principal and the result being EMI portion being increasing will going to be a hectic, will going to bring hurdles to the person who has opted this kind of moratorium. So with this we can come to a conclusion that EMI moratorium will be beneficial to those persons who are considerably who have lapsed, who have paid more number of who are at least some in the middle of the tenure. For example, if a person borrows for 20 years, at the time of pandemic 2020, those who borrowed at 2011 or 2012 shall get benefit, because as you go down the line, your interest portion reduced, and that reduced interest portion added to principal outstanding will not make much difference to the EMI. Okay, in this case 50 lakhs he borrowed in 2012 and he has paid 100 installments. As such, he paid 100 installments. The interest portion of this EMI is considerably less compared to the same amount which is borrowed by this person who is in the initial stages of payment, who has got more portion of interest to his thing. So my suggestion is, don't opt for EMI moratorium if you are an initial borrower. Check twice with the banker what is going to be your EMI revision, if at all you opt for this moratorium kind of thing. So this is briefly about EMI moratorium. Now there is a debate. I'll conclude this in a minute or two. There is a debate. Why can't this interest? That also in the recent news I've just seen that the Supreme Court has called for explanations from Reserve Bank of India in consultation with the central government. Like, if at all it is possible to waive this interest, to waive this EMI during the period of moratorium. If it is not possible to waive the EMI on this 6 months, at least don't add this interest portion back to the principal. We have seen that during the moratorium, the interest portion of this EMI will be added to the principal outstanding, and that leads to a revision of EMI. So the Supreme Court is asking the Reserve Bank of India, if at all it is possible to frame new guidelines, like at least not segregate this interest and add it to the principal, so that after the resumption of the payments of EMI, people will pay 36,000. In case of Mr. X, he'll be paying 36,000. That's okay if the tenure is increased during the end of the tenure. But because interest is being added to the principal during these 6 months, the EMI is going to be revised. Just because 12,000 and so on, 67,000 is the interest component being added to 50 lakhs, his EMI is going to become 38,000 or 39,000. So this is what Supreme Court has asked for. We don't know what is the conclusion. The Reserve Bank and the Reserve Bank and the central government are brainstorming if at all such thing can happen. But the common argument is, no bank, especially when banks are in a crisis with already twin balance sheet problem and NPAs and all, it is not possible for the banks to forego the interest revenue coming from a lot of home loans and all. And as an estimate, according to an estimate, if at all banks shall forego the interest or waive this EMI during the period of moratorium, if at all the banks can waive, the loss is going to be around 2 lakh crores. 2 lakh crores, which is 1% of the GDP of this country. So that is practically not possible. So that is why we see the Reserve Bank of India coming with an answer that waiver is not possible but the postponement. So this is briefly about EMI moratorium. We have just discussed about what is EMI and what is moratorium, and then I've defined about moratorium and the Banking Regulation Act, etc. And then I've just given you a recap of what exactly happens with a bank with that example of mangoes. And then I've given you the illustration. I'll try to put possibly a loan amortization chart so that shall be helpful, or maybe I'll make a small video. I knew that this video has become so long, thanks for patience, but I'll try to put a screenshot of that so that it will be helpful for you. And now we've discussed if EMI moratorium is good or bad and why the banks do not waive this. Thanks for watching this video. Stay tuned for more updates.